one, boom.
You're satisfied. Wham, bam,
Tesla cam. Hope you're satisfied.
This Model 3 owner was driving down a highway outside of Genoa, Italy, when traffic slowed down as drivers passed through a toll station. A noisy, modified BMW in front of our submitter revved up as soon as it cleared the toll booth, but watch what happened next. The BMW driver lost control and collided with another car, then crashed into the barrier before bouncing back, finally stopping right in front of the car it had sideswiped. The victim was actually a student driver who'd been receiving a driving lesson from an instructor, and the vehicle was owned by the driving school. Now that's a driving lesson. Thankfully, nobody was injured. Everyone involved was able to immediately exit their vehicles. That's gotta be a rough way to experience your first vehicle collision. What do you think the driving instructor told the student after this happened? Give us your best guess in the comments and we'll send a Wham Bam hat to a randomly selected winner. Mamma mia! Adam was headed to Disney World with his family when they witnessed an oncoming truck lose control and smash into the median barrier. Adam was certain the truck would flip over the barrier, but incredibly, the trucker was able to save it. Adam was able to change lanes and protect his 3-week-old Model Y from being struck by any debris. Christine was on her way to get some tacos in downtown Los Angeles and was waiting to turn left at a traffic light. She was watching a police car turn when, wham! She witnessed a collision happen right in front of her. The cop car made a U-turn and returned to the collision scene, so Christine decided it wasn't necessary for her to stick around. She wanted to shout out her brother, who's been watching our channel for the past 2 years, for suggesting she send us her video. Thanks, bro. Get it? Because he's her brother? Yeah, you get it. Roadhouse and his wife were driving in French Valley, California. After coming to a red light and stopping behind other traffic, they felt a sudden impact from behind. As Roadhouse got out to inspect the damage, his wife rolled down the passenger window and asked, "Is it a Honda bump?" Roadhouse laughed and replied, "No, it's a VW," before exchanging insurance information with the other driver. Sadly, this isn't the first time their Model Y has witnessed a rear-end collision. Take a look at this next video. This time, Roadhouse was driving home on I-15 one morning after a 13-hour night shift. He was getting ready to take the exit to I-215 when traffic slowed down and the driver of the SUV in front of him turned on their hazard lights when they slammed on the brakes, forcing Roadhouse to hit the brakes as well. When he heard a loud crack behind him, he checked his rearview mirror only to discover full-on carnage. He began to roll forward and made a small maneuver in case he needed to get out of the way, but thankfully, the red sedan that had rammed into the SUV veered onto the shoulder. The out-of-control SUV then T-boned a car in the adjacent lane. We even get to see the license plate fly past the front of his Tesla after the impact. Once he'd gotten home, he downloaded his Tesla Cam video and called the California Highway Patrol. He was eventually put in touch with the responding officer and was able to give him a statement and a copy of the footage. The driver of the red sedan was found responsible and was cited for following too closely, rear-ending the SUV and causing the damage to the third vehicle.
Yep.
Bharat was driving his Model Y and had just exited a highway when he watched a Nissan run a stop sign. Whoa, that was a close one.
That was.
After Bharat slammed on his brakes so hard, he wasn't sure if he'd made contact with the Nissan or not. Thankfully, when he stopped to check for damage, he couldn't find any. Phew! Thor was driving when he noticed an SUV driver up ahead of him was behaving erratically, swerving in and out of their lane, and he began to suspect that something was wrong. When they began crossing a bridge, the SUV suddenly sideswiped a guardrail before swerving into oncoming traffic. At that point, Thor called 911 and reported the dangerous driver. He eventually was able to provide the operator with the SUV's license plate number before they asked him to back off. Let's hope they caught up with this driver before anything worse happened. Brennan was driving to the Anaheim Convention Center for the final California Designer Con when the truck in front of him suddenly swerved and a wild shovel appeared.
Oh, what the?
Brennan wasn't using the full self-driving beta and didn't evade the shovel quickly enough on his own. His front left tire ran over the shovel and sent it flying off the highway. Brennan immediately pulled over toward an exit and called Tesla roadside assistance. They guided him through the process of making an insurance claim in his Tesla app. His wife was shaken up, but she needed to get to the convention right away. She summoned an Uber, and 15 minutes later, a Tesla Model 3 pulled up to pick her up. Brennan went with his Tesla as it was towed to a tire shop after waiting an hour for a tow truck. Brennan only had to pay $40 out of pocket to get back on the road. Gerwin had parked his Tesla one night in his work parking garage during a company party. During the festivities, Gerwin had no idea what his Tesla had begun recording in the parking garage. A man walked up to a Mercedes parked next to Gerwin's Tesla before smashing the window, folding down the back seat, and stealing bags from the trunk. See this guy who evidently witnessed the whole thing? It turns out he's actually the thief's getaway driver. When Gerwin returned to the garage with a colleague and discovered the break-in, they called the police, who responded within 30 minutes to get a copy of his Tesla cam footage. Tien was driving his Model Y in Nashville, Tennessee. He had just stopped at a red light when a premium Honda bumped into him.
I guess it is.
The guy admitted he'd been trying to grab something from the floor on the passenger
you're not supposed to
side.
do that, Dom.
Thanks to Tien's tow hitch, his Tesla didn't seem to be damaged, so
Tap in
they
chat so I
parted
know who you are.
ways. By the way, if this happens to you, it's still a good idea to exchange contact info and have your vehicle inspected. Damage to a tow hitch can be difficult to see and very expensive to repair. Art was on his way home after a trip to Lake Arrowhead. On his way back, the fog was so thick he didn't notice rocks had fallen onto the road. Art
Maybe you
reacted
shouldn't be
too
driving
late
that
and
fast.
hit a rock. He quickly stopped to assess his vehicle for damage. Art immediately noticed some obvious damage and parts that would need to be replaced. He told us the repair quote Tesla gave him was $320 for parts alone. Instead, he ordered the parts and installed them himself for only $220.
Probably gonna watch one or two more of these. Check up on
Pear was driving when an oncoming car lost control
How
and
Fortnite
headed
is
straight
updating,
for him
and then
before the driver
when that's
managed to
ready,
steer
I'll play
away
that.
and crash in a ditch. During his evasive maneuver, the other driver sprayed slushy snow onto Pear's windshield, and he told us the loud sound startled him. He also told us the other car was still in the ditch when he drove by the next day. This Model 3 owner was driving to work in Wheaton, Illinois. A Kia driver behind him was weaving in and out of traffic, but he was stuck behind our submitter in the heavy traffic. Eventually, they both merged from the right lane to the left at the same time. A car in front of our submitter also merged, which caused him to slow down. It seems like the Kia driver didn't appreciate that, so he tried once again to get around our submitter before getting stuck again behind a slow car. This time, instead of being
I wanna let him
patient,
in,
the Kia driver
but
tried
I
to
also
muscle
wanna
his
leave
way
that
in
much
front of
space.
the Tesla. Even though our submitter laid on the horn, the Kia
I'm
driver
good.
backed down.
How about you?
Autopilot wasn't engaged, but our submitter told us he could feel resistance in the steering wheel as the car's side collision avoidance activated. He thought contact was made, but when he later checked for damage, he didn't find any. Scott and his son were driving home from a hockey game when, out of nowhere, a cyclist came shooting into the road from in front of a bus. Thankfully,
I wanna slow
Scott
down.
was able to slam on the brakes to avoid
Dummy
a
shouldn't have
collision.
been-
If he'd been a split second later in reaching the pedal, that cyclist would have had a very bad day.
Yeah, but that's on him.
Hong was
I would
sitting at a
not be
red
hitting
light
no
in Roland Heights,
brakes.
California. When the light turned green, he'd barely started moving when he had to step on the brakes again.
Like,
That's right, another Tesla driver wasn't paying attention and ran their red light. Roll the jingle.
Tesla man can't drive that. Tesla man can't drive that.
Tesla man can drive. I'm glad I could help you.
Thanks to our patrons for
helping
keeping
people.
the show on the road.
Okay, I want to go watch some more of this.
Hey, Ryan Reynolds here. Big Wireless has once again raised their prices. In response, we're bringing back our deflation promotion. The marketing department asked me to be as explicit as...
Let's see. Let's. I'm gonna just watch this one because it's longer.
Alan Alan's
That's not
Tesla
50
Model
minutes.
S Plaid rolled over after hitting a patch of ice on a winding mountain road, leaving him stranded alone for hours. Let's back up and start this story from the beginning. Alan was headed to his cabin in the Sequoia National Forest one evening.
I don't get how
The forecasted
guys
low temperature
think
was
he's-
above freezing, and Alan
never
still
mind.
had summer tires on his Model S Plaid. He told us his Tesla never warned him about freezing conditions, but while he was coming around a bend, he hit a patch of ice and was sent sliding into the side of the mountain.
Okay, bye.
The Tesla rolled onto its roof before righting itself. Less than 10 minutes later, it completely shut down, so even the heater was no longer running. It quickly became very cold, and there was no cell reception for miles in any direction. The wreck happened in a very remote area, and it was unlikely anyone would drive by, certainly not before daybreak. Thankfully, Alan was able to call for help on his satellite phone. It took a couple of hours
many
for
people
first
got those?
responders to arrive. Thankfully, Alan only had minor cuts from glass and knives flying around and hitting his head. Where did the knives come from? Alan had been taking some dishes up to his cabin, and they were in boxes in his back seat. The impact sent them flying forward before they rolled around the car while it was rolling over. The responding highway patrol officer told Alan he was fortunate to hit the mountainside. If the ice patch had been on the prior curve, the car would have flown off the road and splashed down in the freezing cold Kern River below. The officer also told him that had happened the previous winter, and sadly, the family in that car didn't survive. The next day, Alan drove back to the scene of the wreck and found his car's air compressor that had been ripped off. He kept it as a souvenir and to remind him to be more careful while driving on mountain roads. The car was totaled after the repair bill exceeded $100,000 US. While Alan doesn't know if having all-season tires would have made a difference in this case, he made sure to get a set for his replacement vehicle, which is also a Model S Plaid. Good call, Alan. We've got more incredible Tesla stories lined up, so hold on to your handlebars. Panta had just picked up the Tesla Model 3 he bought at a salvage auction. He repaired the car enough to drive it and was tinkering around in the interior when he discovered it still had a USB drive in it. He went ahead and plugged it into his computer and found this video of a FedEx truck speeding through an intersection before slamming into the Tesla.
Wrong side of the road, jumping the curb. It's crazy.
It looks like the FedEx truck might have been unoccupied.
No way.
It
No shot, right? That's... Can't tell if there's someone there or not.
It looks like the FedEx truck
Bro,
might have
what?
been unoccupied.
That's crazy.
Panta paid $12,000 US for the car, and shipping it to Georgia cost him another $3,000, which includes the auction fees. He's budgeted $4,000 to fix it, which means he'll end up paying $19,000 for a rebuilt Model 3. Speaking of repairing Teslas, one of the most common types of damage we hear about can be any driver's worst nightmare, curb rash. That's why we're so excited that this week's video is sponsored by an awesome solution to this problem. The company Magback is best known for smartphone cases and wireless phone chargers for Teslas, and they have a new product called RimCase. Their slogan is "No more curb rash anxiety." We like it already. The RimCase has a modular interlocking design, making it so easy to install, even Wham Bam can do it. We'll give ease of installation a 10 out of 10, and it's just as easy to remove it or replace any damaged pieces. It blends seamlessly with your wheel for a sleek, undetectable appearance, and it'll even hide existing damage. It's true, Wham Bam has curbed his wheels. He claims it was his wife who did this, but we all know the truth. We literally can't imagine a more appropriate product to sponsor Wham Bam Tesla Cam. A product that protects Teslas from damage. Could this collab be any more perfect? The RimCase is available for either the induction or Uber turbine wheels on both the Model Y and the Model 3. When you check it out at the link in the description, use our coupon code to get 15% off. Thanks to Magback for sponsoring the video. We now return to our regularly scheduled
Why would you do
crashes
that
and carnage.
on purpose? Yes, it's to show...
Mateo was driving southbound in El Paso, Texas, when a Hyundai Elantra driver ran a red light and he was unable to avoid T-boning it. An ambulance driver witnessed and reported the collision. Police and firefighters responded to the scene within 5 minutes. Thankfully, nobody was hurt. Mateo never did speak with the other driver, but he found out through the police that she was uninsured and her vehicle's registration was expired. As a result, the Hyundai was impounded by the police. The police also told Mateo the other driver claimed he was speeding and had run a red light. Too bad for her, Mateo had Tesla cam footage and the ambulance driver's statement to confirm that he'd done nothing wrong. The video evidence made the police investigation open and shut. Mateo's repair estimate currently stands at $2,500 but we expect it to increase after a thorough inspection. There seem to be a lot of uninsured drivers these days, so it's a good idea to have uninsured motorist coverage on your own insurance policy. Mark was driving his Model S in North Canton, Ohio, and navigating one of many roundabouts in the area when the driver of a Toyota Avalon failed to understand how they operate. The Toyota crashed right into the side of Mark's Tesla. Mark's wife and oldest son were in the car, and right after the collision, his son leaned forward to tell him that he now had a video to send to Wham Bam. The police were called to the scene, and the other driver was cited for failing to yield. Justin was driving his Model 3 when a vehicle exiting the highway suddenly lost control and crossed all lanes before colliding with the median barrier.
And they looked like they were doing pretty good too.
But when he got home, he found a report of the collision on the California Highway Patrol's website. The incident was described as a no-injury hit-and-run collision. Well, that doesn't seem accurate. Did the driver tell the CHP that someone had hit them? If so, maybe the CHP should take another look at that case after watching this video because it doesn't look like that's what happened.
I want it stopped, but it's in the video and...
What are we looking at, you might wonder? Let me hit the light switch. There we go. This clip is from Dario, who sent us this video of when his house, business office, and warehouse were all flooded. 3 cars, including his Model Y, were affected by the flooding. About 4,300 square feet were under water and mud up to waist level. Incredibly, Sentry Mode was able to keep running the entire time. Dario is now facing a very long insurance process ahead. We hope it all works out in the end. Alexander was driving down a highway in France when traffic suddenly came to a stop. He managed to stop in time, but a car behind him didn't, which set off a chain reaction of cars smashing into each other.
Boom.
Alexander already had his foot on the brake, which prevented him from continuing the carnage and crashing into the Mercedes in front of him. The involved drivers pulled over and calmly exchanged information without anyone feeling the need to involve the police. How very European of them. That isn't really how we Americans tend to deal with these things. You'll see what I mean in this next story from the Wild West, California. But first, repairing Alexander's Tesla took a week and cost around $5,000. Cora had just paid off his 1-year-old Model 3. No, literally, he just left home after making the final payment. It was now his Tesla, free and clear, but sadly, it wasn't free of trouble. Just as his light turned green and he was about to enter a highway on-ramp, an SUV appeared behind him, one he'd had no previous interactions with, as the video footage proves. The SUV driver sped up, turned left from the straight-only lane, and tried to squeeze past Cora on the on-ramp. Even though the SUV driver had sped up, he hadn't fully passed Cora, so he slowed down to make room for the reckless SUV driver. Once the driver emerged in front of Cora, they slammed on their brakes, screeching nearly to a halt. Cora tried to avoid a collision, but he'd been caught off guard and couldn't avoid rear-ending the SUV. The SUV driver then sped off, crossing several lanes of traffic without signaling. Cora pulled over to the shoulder and called the police. Cora offered to show the officer his Tesla cam footage, and when he watched it, he reacted by asking, "What the heck?" Okay. The SUV driver was easily identified using his license plate number, but get this. He denied any fault, claiming that a BMW had braked hard in front of him and that Cora was at fault because he hadn't been maintaining a safe distance. As a result,
he wasn't keeping a safe distance, so that could make it part of his fault too.
SUV. He responded by sending them his Tesla cam footage, and that cleared everything up right away. Repairing his Tesla took a week and cost $16,000 at the local Tesla certified collision center. Has anybody else noticed that Tesla repair times seem to be going down? Zach was driving with autopilot engaged when all of a sudden he heard a loud crunch outside and saw a minivan next to him run over what looked to be a rogue spare tire lying in the road. Shortly after, there was a line of cars pulled over on the shoulder, all of them with their hazard lights on. They
4,
must have all run over the same
5,
thing, as a
6,
few of
7,
the drivers were getting ready to put on their
8,
own spare
maybe,
tires.
something
Thankfully,
like
the
that.
minivan seemed
9,
to be
10,
unaffected as
11,
they kept on going.
12. It's
This
crazy.
emitter was charging his Tesla Model Y at his workplace. The
That ain't no
charger is
Tesla.
clearly labeled as
Rivian.
private and only for Teslas, but the driver of a Rivian must have missed those signs. Sadly, that wasn't the only thing the Rivian driver missed. When he opened his door, the
That's
wind caught
crazy,
and he
dude.
dinged the side of our submitter's Tesla.
Doink.
After trying to use the Tesla charger with an adapter for a few minutes, the Rivian driver pretended nothing had happened by moving to the other side of the Tesla and using a different charger instead. This emitter told us the ding is noticeable, but thankfully the paint wasn't damaged. Since the damage was so minimal, he chose not to confront the Rivian driver.
Bro, I still would.
So what is ClickUp?
Teach 'em a
ClickUp is
lesson.
an all-in-one productivity software where you can manage everything and anything.
While Michael was traveling down Sibley Boulevard, a Mercury sedan passed him on the left before a Buick SUV suddenly emerged from a side street on the right. The Mercury driver swerved into oncoming traffic to avoid being hit by the Buick, instead colliding head-on
makes
with a
it his
Nissan
fault.
Murano and ripping off the passenger wheel. Michael immediately made a U-turn to follow the Buick as he knew the other drivers would need its license plate number since the Buick driver had caused the collision. Michael successfully retrieved the
glad
plate
someone
number
had a
and
camera.
returned to the scene to share
Else
it
it definitely
and
would've
his
been his
Tesla
fault.
Cam video with the drivers.
couldn't prove
The
nothing.
driver of the Mercury was an off-duty cop, and the driver of the Murano was a 21-year-old whose mother was riding with her. They were both thankful that Michael had chased down the fleeing driver and for copies of his Tesla Cam footage. In a situation like this, who would you blame? Is it the Mercury driver's fault for not stopping in time, or is it the Buick driver's fault for not yielding to traffic?
The Buick, obviously, but
Ginger had left her Tesla
you didn't have a
parked in
camera, it'd be
Sunnyvale,
the
California.
other guy's fault 'cause
Only
you couldn't
5
prove
minutes
none.
later, a vandal decided to break the Tesla's window with a punch. He waited until he thought the coast was clear, but
That
the
actually
attack
worked.
triggered the alarm and Sentry Mode recorded the act.
Yeah,
Ginger
nope,
made a police
nope.
report and included her Sentry Mode footage. The cops told her they'd be investigating, as this was technically a felony.
Yeah.
They encouraged her to share the footage on social media to see
Felony's
if
over
anyone could
$1,000.
identify the criminal. Naturally, people online wondered if she had provoked this man in any way. She checked all the
like,
recordings to see if
yeah,
she had
yeah.
cut someone off or if anybody had followed her to the parking lot, but she found nothing. The vandal was wearing very nondescript clothing and was well prepared to commit this crime, so it really does seem to be a random act of senseless violence.
that wasn't no fist. There was something in
Replacing the
it.
window will cost over $2,000 US, of which Ginger will have to pay
It's
for
basically
insurance
stealing a
deductible of
window.
$250.
And
It'll take
something
2
that
weeks
costs
to get the
over
windshield, but since the
$1,000
crack
is
is
a
on the
felony.
passenger side and not
Anything under
obstructing her
$1,000
view, she can still drive the
is
car in the
a
meantime.
misdemeanor.
If you recognize
So,
this
to me,
man,
it's basically
please
stealing
contact
the
us
window.
and we'll forward the information to Ginger and to the police.
Like, why would you do that to a Tesla? It could
CJ was
obviously
driving home
record
from
you.
work when he merged to the left lane to avoid
People are dumb.
congestion. Soon after, traffic in the right lane stopped while the left lane continued to flow. A driver in the right lane
She
had
ain't
left a gap
stopping
for a
yet.
crossing vehicle, but that driver couldn't see traffic in the left lane
Okay,
and
the
decided
brake
to
did
go
not.
for
You
it.
couldn't. People,
CJ swerved,
Are you
but
blind?
didn't completely avoid a collision since there was another
Look at
vehicle
this.
in the
You
left
could-
lane and decided to
you
go
could see
for
them
it.
there. Did you not see them?
CJ swerved,
see
but
their face there, so
completely
it's
avoided
like-
collision since there
you-
was another
they
vehicle
could
waiting to
obviously-
cross in the median. Both drivers
They would have the right of way
immediately pulled
first.
over. Temperatures
They're
were
already in the
extremely
median.
high, with the heat index at 100 degrees Fahrenheit. The other driver had been working outside in the heat all day, and CJ observed he was fatigued even as he admitted fault. CJ told us he always keeps snacks in his work backpack, so they both said
Wait.
fault had been working extremely high, with the heat index at 100 degrees Fahrenheit. The other driver had been working outside in the heat all day, and CJ observed he was fatigued even as he admitted fault. CJ told us he always
okay.
keeps snacks in his work backpack, so they both sat in his air-conditioned Tesla and each had a granola bar while they waited for the police.
I wouldn't let nobody
CJ
in.
showed the other driver his Tesla Cam
Especially if
video
they
in the
cause an
meantime, and
accident.
he was amazed. The police deemed the
I don't
other
trust
driver at
nobody.
fault without needing to review the footage. Fixing CJ's Tesla took 3 weeks and $14,000
Even if
US
they do admit
and he
fault.
also received a settlement check for $2,500 for diminished value. CJ wanted to shout out his daughter Isabella, who loves watching Wham Bam videos with him, and he told us his wife is pretty cool too. Sterling was driving home from work when a red truck hit something in the road, sending it into the front end of a car that was tailgating it and sending parts flying. That seems like poetic justice to me. The car that was hit began smoking and eventually had to pull off the highway. Even though the car was visibly damaged before this incident, it was clearly much more damaged after. In fact, it looks like the radiator was destroyed.
There ain't no radiator no more.
Michael was driving behind an Audi down a highway in Seattle, Washington. The exit lane headed to the airport was packed, and it was obvious that some drivers were trying to cut the line. That's exactly what happened when a Mercedes driver in front of the Audi slowed down and tried to merge into the packed exit lane. This frustrated the Audi driver, who tried to pull around the Mercedes. At that exact moment, a taxi abruptly changed lanes and crashed into the Audi as it swerved around the Mercedes. And then the Audi accelerated and rear-ended the Mercedes as well.
He never had that lane.
I'm not really sure what was going on here, but Michael
Audi
told
had
us
the
there
lane
was a
all the way.
semi-truck stuck in the airport terminal, which had caused the backup.
When we gonna take you, man?
Please support the show. Okay, let's go check on me Fortnite. It's ready. Away. Boom. Probably don't need that, but whatever. Wait. What'd you post? This is Nevaeh's friend. I think she said they've been friends since like kindergarten. They don't talk a lot, but she said like they go days and weeks without talking and then talk for hours, which I think is kind of a weird friendship, but you know, they do them. Probably not a good idea to add her, because then if Nevaeh finds out, she might get mad. Because then he'll probably be like, how did you add her? How do you know who she is? Stuff like that. I'm barely on that one. I just had it for Nevaeh, and then the girl that just had you guys add each other on, I had added her on there because in case I was talking to Nevaeh, she could still be able to get a hold of me if she needed me. And then Nevaeh's friend told Nevaeh that I was talking to her, so Nevaeh said to block me on my main account, and since she had to do that and show Nevaeh that I was blocked, she said you got a second account, so I'm using that one. But if you really want to, who's playing? Mad Dog. Nobody else I really know or care about. Okay. Logan 4 days. John. Okay. Whatever. Recent. Okay, I will. It'll take me a second because I gotta do it in a weird way, kinda. You pick a stupid weapon, dummy. Please be my weapon. You're stupid. First game. Oh shoot, that's his. I missed. Kill yourself. Haha. Okay, that's dumb. I thought I hit you too. Okay, kill yourself. Bro, leave me alone. Okay, you're dumb. I jumped from that. You see that? Kill yourself, bro. Bro, I can't do this no more. First game on is sucky. Kill yourself, boy. Bro, I'm around the corner. Dude, Bro. We don't talk about that. Okay, I added you on that account. I'm gonna go back to my main account though, because that's gonna be the one I actually mainly be on. Don't ask the name, don't be, yeah. Nevaeh recommended that one because he didn't want my ex to find out. She didn't want my ex to find out what that was. Let's go. Oh, okay, stupid AR. I think I might have picked that one, to be honest with you. Not willingly or not meaning to. I don't know why I'm doing this, but I am. Let go. Bro, what are you placing over there for? Alright, I'm gonna go for a few, but I'll be back. Okay. What? Hold on.
Mom wants to know if you need to go to Andy's.
Not really.
Okay, he said not really.
Bro, build. Bro.
That nigga was ass, I ain't gonna lie.
Meanie. Meanie panini. Let's get into games. Some crimes. 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 Let's go. Hold on. Are you subbed to my YouTube channel? That's also easy. They all easy as can be. There you go. 22. That's how many games I played. I think. Like 5 or 6 wins. In between. My drop spot right there. Best spot yet.
How long before your game's over?
I just started.
You get done with that, you guys need to go to Chick-fil-A.
Okay.
You need to go ask me, Ma, so you're gonna go get a free sandwich from Chick-fil-A.
Okay.
I forgot about Chick-fil-A and Mom just reminded me. You guys have Chick-fil-A and I tried doing hamburgers tomorrow. The only thing I done is put charcoal in the grill and put lighter fluid on it, so it'll be okay until tomorrow. Okay? You'd rather have Chick-fil-A anyway, wouldn't you? You'd rather have Chick-fil-A anyway, wouldn't you? It's free food, might as well go get it.
Well, so what are they even used about?
Huh?
I don't want to get nuggets now.
And you can get nuggets and I'll eat your sandwich. Because I'm not going. I don't feel like doing that. That work, kid? But you need to go ask me, Mom. If she's going. So when that game's over.
Okay. Sounds good. If you wanna take a screenshot of my username, go ahead. Pause the video if you want to stream. Yes. What's that? I thought that was minis. It's okay, perfect. Now I can hold big pots too. Ooh, divide, nope. Wasting my time. I meant to go down, whoops. Tommy guns back? That's stupid. Don't like it. Full blue up, baby. Oh, move. When you gonna play next? You know? Bro, I need to try the new shotgun, but I don't want to. Yes, I got time. Let's go. Bro, get up there. Thank you. Cold chicken. That is dumb. Should give me a gun. Cold gun. Okay, sounds good. Stupid. This is my route that I always take, and if I don't have, if storm blocks me from going there or there, I normally stop somewhere like there and get a card there and do the exact same thing. And I'll show you the route that I normally take. Llama, let's go, baby. Let's go. Wait. Open up. 2? Yeah, I don't want that. Bro, get in the car. Always come to this tower. Ooh, who's he shooting at? Bro, go around the mountain. Fight your man. Don't come up to me. Is there someone else too? I suck. First game on. I suck, bro. Dang, you trying to kill me? It's mean. I wouldn't do that. Okay, I see you. Okay, I stopped. Stupid. Where did you come from? This way? Yes, you did. Okay, I see you. So another guy didn't look. Yeah. Bro, come here, boy. Is that new? I like that thing. So much better. Please be open. No, where the heck am I supposed to go now? A purple? Damn it. Okay, I gotta try this now. I did not want to do until now. Oh, why you gotta be locked? Where am I supposed to go? Stupid game, give me... Bro, you ain't gonna give me anything good. See? 12 gold is nothing. I probably should have put that down here. Whatever. I'll go through here. Ooh. Let's hope you ain't someone here too. Bro, get me in. Wow. Thank you, sir. The heck is this thing? Bro, feels like I haven't played for years. Even though just an update today. I take that. Of course it has to be over here. That's the win of the game. That's what I'm saying. Wait, what one is this? Prepare for war and boast. Okay, whatever. Nope. I'll fight you, I suppose. I was like, did the car disappear? Sniper, baby. This game's over. Nope, it's not. Not until I get a good scope. So in other words, I gotta go there. Yay. Literally the only place I can go. Literally the only place. Come here, come here, come here. Please say there's nobody there. Give me. Oh my gosh, I'm trying to break that. Okay, I thought I would get it up that time. Bro, go! About to get sniped, bro. Don't care about anything except the sniper. All this other loot sucks. Hurry, hurry, hurry. Thank you. Going back to this car. Thank you, sir. Now I just gotta survive. Okay, low, so car. They tried getting. Nope. Got everything I need and want. Let's go. Best scope on this gun. So I know there's someone this direction. Let's be cool. They're coming toward me. You're lucky, dude. If you didn't jump, I'm sure I would have at least hit you. Come up here, dude. Don't want to find me? Bet you do. Pussy. Ding dong. Like that mean. Hey, well, everything's working. Bro. Come here, boy. I see you going around there. Ain't gonna help you much because you gotta come back. Oh, yes, it might help you. Dude, you stupid. Hardest game. Come out wherever you want. Get out of here, dude. Dude, I have to. Where? GG, bro. Surely I won this game. Alright, at 110, I just need to cool down. You're good, I suck at Fortnite, and my brother makes fun of me because I bet you aren't that bad. Bro, this is a bot. This is easy though. Bro, I'm trying to no-scope him. Okay, I'm done with this. Yippee! Second camera, baby. Let's go. Wow. Okay, I got to go, get food. If you're still here, I'm gonna put it on the more dash cam videos, like the hour-long one. If you want to stay here, or if you text me and tell me that you're gonna leave. Okay. Bro, like, there's not many stuff I can delete. I don't really care as long as it works. Boom. Wait, hold on. Let's go here. Playlists. Let's go. I'm gonna delete it on playlist.
The effectiveness of the HEPA filter
And
versus a vehicle that does
I'll be
not have
back
that.
probably 20, 30
Take me
minutes.
down to dash cam stories where the cars are fast and they crash in glory. Oh, well, that's dash cam.
Okay, be back.
Kenya was heading home from Starbucks when the driver of a blue Hyundai made an illegal U-turn and Kenya wasn't able to avoid hitting her. The other driver fixed her front bumper cover with tape or bungees or whatever that all is before Kenya was able to take a picture of her car. She then refused to take responsibility for causing the collision. Kenya made a police report and is now waiting for a repair estimate. Nelson was driving down a California highway when he encountered a CHP traffic brake, which is when a patrol vehicle drives back and forth slowly across all lanes of a highway to slow down traffic for an incident up ahead. Nelson and most other drivers noticed the sea of red brake lights ahead and came to a stop, but one driver behind Nelson wasn't paying attention and rear-ended another vehicle at highway speed. The vehicle that was initially hit was pushed past Nelson and into several other vehicles. Thankfully, Nelson wasn't involved in the collision. He was late for work, so didn't stay, but he hopes everyone else was okay. David was taking a scenic drive down Santiago Canyon Road when an impatient oncoming driver used the shoulder to overtake traffic after David began coming toward him. The speeding driver was already making an illegal overtake when he was forced to the shoulder to avoid hitting David head-on. David told us lots of drivers want to go fast on the curvy road, but with few passing opportunities, many of them choose to make illegal passes rather than slowing down, leading to many fatal collisions. Here's something Chuck didn't expect to see. A BMW driver was speeding down a wet highway when they lost control and slammed into a guardrail. Chuck called 911 to report the incident, and later when he came back the other way, the BMW was gone. Chuck, who was also driving a BMW he's had for a month, told us this was technically an example of a BMW driver failing to signal while changing lanes. Don't be one of those BMW drivers, Chuck. Break the cycle. Nilette had just gotten off a highway and was going through a roundabout when he encountered what might be the most extreme case of road debris we've seen so far. Nilette believes this was part of a manufactured home that had dropped onto the road. Can you imagine the conversation between the first responders? All units, please respond to the highway off-ramp roundabout for a housewarming party. Dispatch, this homeowner does not appear to have the proper permits for street parking. Could you send an estate trooper? Joshua was on his way to Georgia for a wedding when it had just started raining. While driving down a highway at 75 miles per hour, his Nissan Altima suddenly lost control and began spinning. Joshua pulled over to collect himself after narrowly avoiding what could have been a bad wreck. Thankfully, nothing was damaged, and he was able to resume his trip after catching his breath. Brian was driving when he watched an impatient driver run a red light and get T-boned by an SUV. Brian pulled into a nearby parking lot. When law enforcement arrived, he gave them his information so they could request his dashcam footage. Mr. Lama was about to turn left through an intersection when a Prius driver drove straight through his lane, from a lane that's only allowed to turn left. When even a llama can see the signs and road markings you missed, you know you're doing something wrong. Thankfully, Mr. Llama was able to stop and avoid a collision with the headstrong hybrid. The trucker who sent us this video was waiting for a green light before turning because he had a heavy load and couldn't accelerate very quickly. It seems that another trucker couldn't wait and decided to cut in front of him.
Hey!
The other truck's trailer clipped the corner of our submitter's Freightliner, removing a headlight and part of the front bumper. The other truck sustained a deflated tire, and both drivers immediately pulled over. Thankfully, nobody was hurt, and the two truckers were able to laugh it off with no hard feelings after settling the issue with the police and their insurance providers. Dave was passing an intersection notorious for vehicle collisions when two drivers pulled onto the road in front of him at the same time, blocking both lanes. Thankfully, David was able to thread the needle and pass between the two vehicles without making contact. After that, he told us he went on his merry way. This submitter was approaching a green light when it turned yellow. He decided to continue through it, which is completely legal in the state of Illinois, even if the light turns red after entering the intersection. We checked. An oncoming driver in the left turn lane failed to yield to our submitter before colliding with his Toyota Sienna. Both drivers pulled over and exchanged information before continuing. We've already seen plenty of bad drivers in this episode, but we know there's one particular kind of bad driver you're all waiting to see. This week's Tesla behaving badly.
That Tesla man can't drive.
Nick watched a Tesla driver skip around traffic by going straight through an intersection from a turn lane. He pointed out that they did give a nice wave to absolve their sin.
The Can-Am Ryker. Ready for fun, thrills, and urban adventure. Visit a dealer today for great offers on your new Can-Am.
You never know when your budget is going to be put to the test. Spruce could help. This doesn't have to be you. When you deposit your federal tax refund into your Spruce spending account, you could get it up to 6 days early. Sign up today.
This submitter was driving along in her Nissan Armada when the driver of a yellow minivan cut across the street and got T-boned by an Infiniti SUV. Our submitter stopped and exchanged information with the victim so she could later send her a copy of her dashcam footage. She told us Albuquerque's drivers are some of the worst in the country. Ravi and his wife Aisha were on their way to celebrate her birthday when the traffic in front of them unexpectedly came to a standstill. As the Ford Fiesta in front of him rear-ended a Land Rover, Ravi slammed on the brakes and swerved into the other lane. He couldn't believe what had happened and told us he felt like he was in a Fast and Furious movie. Ravi told us he'd been wishing to capture some dashcam footage to send us, but he now realizes he should be careful what he wishes for. He's glad what happened wasn't any worse, and so are we. Eric witnessed a hit and run.
Oops. And he just flees.
After the responsible party fled, Eric turned around to find the victim and give them a copy of his dashcam footage, but they'd already left the scene. Logan was heading home from Walmart when he approached a green light. Suddenly, the driver of a black SUV ran their red light before stopping right in front of him. Logan honked and braked before waiting patiently for the other driver to get out of the way. He told us our channel inspired him to get a dashcam, and he's glad that he did. Ahmed was on his way to a funeral when he was rear-ended by another driver. When Ahmed slowed down gradually for traffic, an inattentive driver behind him rear-ended his vehicle at high speed. Ahmed told us this collision happened just 3 months after the last time he was rear-ended, which we showed in episode 67. Thankfully, the other driver admitted fault. Fixing Ahmed's car cost around $3,000 US. Angie was headed home from work when a white SUV went flying past her down the interstate, weaving between her and other vehicles before getting stuck in traffic. After getting trapped behind another SUV and forced to slow down, the other driver made their way across lanes before continuing their reckless journey. Ethan had to stop for highway traffic when he noticed the driver behind him wasn't slowing down. Even though Ethan began moving to the shoulder to avoid a collision, the other vehicle hit his Volkswagen Jetta at around 50 miles per hour. Ethan called 911, then waited for first responders to arrive. While Ethan was speaking with the California Highway Patrol, another driver on the other side of the highway became distracted by the scene and rear-ended someone else. This time, nobody needed to call 911. The other driver's insurance provider fixed Ethan's Jetta at the cost of $700 US. Ethan told us he was sentenced to bed rest for minor injuries resulting from the collision. Leighton was driving along with his fiancée when they encountered a bear making its way across the highway.
Babe! That was a bear! I told you we have them.
Clearly, Leighton's fiancée was very excited, as she's never seen a bear in the 4 years she's lived in this area. They kept driving after the bear walked back into the woods. They thanked us for our videos and told us they absolutely love them. If you're a fan, be sure to check out the exclusive perks available to our Patreon supporters, like our private Discord server at the link below.
Wham, bam, we got a Patreon man. Please support the show.
If you're driven by an adventurous heart, you're in luck. The 2024 Subaru Outback shares your spirit. With standard symmetrical all-wheel drive and up to 32 miles per gallon. Plus, 97% of Outback vehicles sold in the last 10 years are still on the road today. The 2024 Subaru Outback. Go where love takes you.
Shop in store or online at Van Subaru during the A Lot to Love event.
We're back with 20 more dashcam videos sent directly to us by the people who captured them. From rollovers to rear ends, side swipes to slowdowns, this week's episode has it all, so buckle up. Ernie was headed to Costco for dog medicine when an oncoming driver ran a red arrow and turned in front of Ernie as he proceeded through a green light. The T-bone impact rolled Ernie's Toyota 4Runner completely over before it ended up back on its wheels. With his doors stuck and windshield shattered, he ended up climbing out through the rear hatch with the help of a bystander. Ernie filed an insurance claim with his dashcam footage as evidence after responding police officers retrieved his dashcam for him. The other driver's insurance provider accepted liability and cut him a check for $40,000 US. Obviously, his 4Runner was totaled, but he used the insurance settlement to replace it with a new one in the same color, along with an improved dashcam with both front and rear angles. Unsurprisingly, the cops told Ernie that the other driver had claimed Ernie had run a red light, and his dashcam footage made all the difference. If you need a dashcam, we put a link to our recommendation in the description. Shia was driving down a ramp leading from one highway to another. Suddenly, he encountered a wrong-way driver coming straight toward him. Shia swerved into the other lane without having time to see if it was clear. Miraculously, he made it through the mayhem without a scratch. He called 911 but couldn't stop because he had a car full of passengers. Dina was waiting for traffic on the other side of an intersection to pull forward before proceeding through a green light. Suddenly, an oncoming driver turned across traffic, cutting in front of a pickup truck. I bet the driver didn't expect the cop behind them to dish up a helping of instant justice after she nearly caused a collision. Dina told us watching our channels has helped her avoid multiple collisions. Thanks, Dina. Simon was on his way home from work when he drifted too close to the edge of the road while rounding a bend. When he yanked the steering wheel to the left, he overcorrected and lost control. After crossing the oncoming lane, Simon's Ford Explorer slammed into a tree before stopping. After climbing out of the SUV, Simon was checked out by bystanders and first responders. Thankfully, he only sustained minor injuries. The impact with the tree totaled Simon's Explorer. His insurance provider paid him enough to replace it with a Jeep Grand Cherokee, but he still misses his Ford. He told us he never thought he'd be sending in his own video, and he offered his condolences to those injured in collisions. Simon says, "Be safe out there, everyone. You never know what might happen." This emitter watched the driver of a car dive for a late exit and get some instant justice for their trouble. That trooper dove for the exit almost as sharply as the other driver did. Our submitter told us he sees people do this all the time here, but I'm guessing they don't usually get pulled over. This emitter was riding his Kawasaki Concourse when an oncoming Mazda came completely over the double yellow line into his lane. After taking to the shoulder to avoid a head-on collision, our submitter turned around and caught up to the Mazda driver before gesturing for him to pull over. He then called the police. The Mazda driver admitted to falling asleep at the wheel. The police fined him over $700 for reckless driving. Our submitter said he still shakes when he watches this video, and having a camera as a biker is a must. Watch what happened when Mike was on his way home.
That was really bad.
He was on his way home from work when a car cutting through traffic behind him was struck by an oncoming SUV. Since he was carpooling with a coworker and other people were stopping, Mike continued on his way home. Matthew was on his way to lunch when the driver ahead of him suddenly pulled into the intersection even though the light was still red. Matthew beeped his horn, and the other driver realized what was happening and stopped before backing up partway. When the light turned green, Matthew gave them a little extra space, just in case they forgot to shift back into drive. Major was driving to work when another car passed him on the shoulder at insanely high speed. Thankfully, no contact was made. Major contacted the police and gave them the other car's license plate number, and he hopes they teach the other driver a lesson. Edward was driving his Kia Niro when a pickup driver passed him on the shoulder. With no prior interaction, the pickup driver pulled in front of Edward and slammed on the brakes. After Edward rear-ended the pickup, the driver sped off. Edward wasn't able to pursue the pickup after his car's safety systems detected damage to the battery cooling system and shut down the car. When he called 911, he was told no officers were available to respond. A family member drove Edward to the police station where he made a report. His insurance claim is still pending, but he expects his Kia Niro to be totaled and plans to replace it with a Tesla Model Y. Speaking of Teslas, Will and Em were driving behind a Tesla when the driver made an illegal U-turn right in front of them, forcing them to slam on the brakes to avoid a collision.
Tesla man can't drive.
That Tesla driver is lucky that Will and Em were paying attention. They were in a Honda Pilot. Thankfully, this ended up being a Tesla behaving badly video and not a Honda bump. Zach had just exited a highway in his Ford F-150 when he was forced to slam on his brakes to avoid hitting a red light runner. Now that was a close one. Thankfully, no contact was made, but it doesn't look like the girl driving the car even realized how close she came to having a really bad day. Johnny was stopped at a red light when the Polestar 2 behind him began slowly creeping toward him. Suddenly, it rolled right into the back of his Honda Civic. Both drivers pulled into a parking lot. The other driver immediately admitted fault, claiming he'd dropped a water bottle underneath his brake pedal. Thankfully, nobody was hurt. Even though they exchanged insurance information, Donnie found out the other driver's insurance doesn't cover the Polestar. His own insurance provider is now following up, but Donnie now wishes he'd involved the police. Thankfully, his Civic has already been repaired at a cost of $3,700 US, which took just over 3 weeks. Braden was driving down a country road when he ended up behind a pickup truck pulling a farming implement. He had a feeling the field cultivator was going to hit more than just the occasional tree branch, and he was right. Sure enough, the cultivator hit a mailbox when the pickup driver got too close. Braden kept going and doesn't know if the other driver stopped, but he said the damage didn't look too bad. Alexander had just entered a shopping center parking lot when he watched the driver of a white sedan nearly hit a silver Acura SUV.
Yay!
Thankfully now, both drivers braked and avoided a collision before the driver of the white car backed up and allowed the Acura to proceed. Meow! Dawson was approaching his exit in a construction zone when a BMW driver decided to muscle his way in front of Dawson's Ford Fusion. The BMW driver excused his behavior by telling Dawson, "I had my signal on." The police responded and cited the BMW driver for improper lane change after watching Dawson's dashcam video. The BMW driver's insurance provider accepted liability as soon as Dawson sent them the video, not even waiting to get the police report. They paid Dawson $2,400 US to fix his Ford Fusion. It seems like everyone except that BMW driver understood two things. Your turn signal doesn't give you the right of way, and other drivers aren't required to avoid hitting you if you're the one breaking the law. Max was waiting for traffic to proceed through a single-lane construction zone when impatient drivers behind him decided it would be a good idea to drive through an oncoming turn lane to skip the wait. Sadly for them, an oncoming driver needed to use that turn lane, and he was not happy about the illegal use of his lane by the entitled drivers. Max even put his arm out his window to signal to the other drivers not to continue, but he was ignored. He said that if the front car had been headed off a cliff, the Seattle area would now have fewer bad drivers. He also told us he took our dashcam recommendation and picked up a Viofo A129 Plus Duo. Remember, the link and an exclusive coupon code is in the description. Jeremy's dashcam records in a very low frame rate, then speeds everything up to 60 frames per second, so we did our best to smooth it out for you. He was on his way to work at 45 miles per hour when the driver of a Honda pulled out in front of him. Thankfully, Jeremy was able to bring his Toyota Venza to a complete stop and avoid a collision with the Honda minivan. Julia was being tailgated by a Nissan SUV driver on the highway. She told us he was following so closely she couldn't see his headlights in her rearview mirror. Eventually, he used an exit lane to go around her. She thinks he was focused on her and didn't notice the Ford in front of her. The couple in the Ford called the police while Julia provided them with a copy of her footage. As she pulled away, she told us the Nissan driver was glaring at her and shaking his head. She's hopeful her dashcam footage prevented a false insurance claim. We've got one more video from Jeremy to show you. He sent us this footage to show us what a Mennonite traffic jam looks like. Can you imagine getting around this way every day? I wonder if any of them have dash cams.
Wham, bam, we got a Patreon, man. Please support the show.
This week, red light runners, flying beds, terrifying truckers, and plenty of bad drivers. It's all coming up on Wham Bam Dashcam. Josh was heading home from his security job when someone ran a red light and T-boned him as he was driving through an intersection. The impact turned his Nissan Leaf and sent it somewhere it had never been before, into a gas station. The car was undrivable and the driver who hit them took off after retrieving their bumper cover. Since it was a hit and run, Josh's own insurance provider paid for the repairs. Due to supply chain issues, it took 3 months for the shop to get an airbag sensor, the last part they needed to complete the repair. In addition to the repaired Leaf, Josh now drives a Tesla Model 3. We can't wait to see some submissions from him over on Wham Bam Tesla Cam, and hopefully he won't be getting T-boned. This submitter was driving his Mini Cooper SE when he encountered a pickup truck hauling an unsecured load. Just as he was about to pass it, a box spring got caught by the wind and fell out of the pickup's bed. The box spring hit the Mini Cooper's fender and pillar before almost ripping the side view mirror off. Our submitter followed the truck for a while to get the driver's attention, and they eventually went back for the box spring. Once they'd collected the box spring, everyone pulled into a parking lot to exchange information. Fixing the electric Mini cost $5,000 US, but the pickup driver's insurance paid for it after he was found responsible for the damage. Ben was driving below the speed limit following traffic on his way home. An impatient driver decided to pass 2 vehicles at once, but they had to take a quick detour when they encountered an oncoming vehicle. After going off-road and bouncing along in a ditch for a while, the pickup managed to stop just short of a wooded area. Thankfully, they didn't hit anything or anyone else. Leon was just leaving work when he watched a blue minivan speed up an empty lane approaching an intersection. Stopped vehicles had left a gap for turning traffic to get into a gas station parking lot, and the minivan collided with a driver who had turned without checking if the lane was clear. Thankfully, there were no serious injuries. Here's a closer view of a very similar accident. This time, a Honda driver cut between cars to reach a parking lot only to be hit by a Ford SUV coming up the empty lane. Jose made sure everyone was okay before continuing on, but he said the Ford driver was very upset. This submitter was driving his Ram 1500 when he watched a dump truck lose a tire at 70 miles per hour. It was the front right tire, so watch carefully for the truck to jerk to the side and dust going everywhere. The tire eventually disintegrated, sending a huge chunk of tread into the lane behind our submitter, where it looks like it was run over by another pickup truck. Jonathan was driving past a construction zone when the driver of a stopped Jeep on the side of the road suddenly flipped a U-turn right in the path of Jonathan's flatbed work truck. With no way to stop or get into the oncoming lane, Jonathan took the least expensive option and smashed into a construction barrel on his way into the unpaved lane. I found it comical seeing his Chevy emblem go flying. Thankfully, that was the only damage done to Jonathan's vehicle. He turned around after digging the barrel out from under the truck to go back and make sure everyone was okay. A sheriff's deputy in an unmarked pickup truck had pulled over the Jeep driver. Although both drivers were shaken up, everyone was fine. Jerome was heading to work in a 40-mile-per-hour zone. The roads were a bit icy as an SUV pulled out in front of him before crossing into the left lane. Unfortunately, it didn't stay there. Jerome couldn't avoid a collision as the SUV driver turned across Jerome's lane. The SUV driver refused to provide his information, claiming Jerome had been speeding, so Jerome had to call the police. His Jetta had to be towed due to, as he puts it, a broken steering thingamabobber. I'm no mechanic, but I'm guessing he meant the whatchamacallit. He also told us he thinks dash cams should be standard equipment in all new cars. This submitter had just finished shopping for groceries and was headed to get a bite to eat. Suddenly, another driver decided to turn in front of him, forcing him to slam on the brakes to avoid a collision. Hilariously, a police officer had just gotten behind the submitter and witnessed this happen. They immediately followed the other driver into the parking lot. We can't see what happened next, but we sure hope the officer gave that other driver some instant justice. Our submitter told us he hopes everybody who watches this channel has their own dash cam. We have to agree. Tyler was reaching into the back seat for something when another driver swerved into a... We're back with 20 more dash cam videos sent directly to us by the people who captured them. Over 5,000 TeslaCam videos sent in by our fans, and we serve up new ones every week. Today, we're showcasing some of the craziest clips we've ever featured, so buckle up for Wham Bam TeslaCam's Worst Drivers of California, Volume 1. While Michael was driving to the airport in Sacramento, the driver of a silver BMW drove recklessly while trying to get around him to reach an exit. The BMW driver clipped the front of Michael's Tesla before crashing into a barrier.
Damn.
We can actually see that the BMW runways out of the window before the crash. Was he flipping someone the bird or just waving at someone? Michael lost his headlight lens when the BMW made contact and traded some paint on the passenger side of the front bumper cover. The car is perfectly drivable, but the headlight will have to be replaced. Michael is still waiting to hear from his insurance provider, but he's been told that replacing the headlight and fixing the paint will cost around $2,000. Michael uses his card for Uber, and he tells the car always starts conversations with riders. As Rusty crested a blind hill, he immediately noticed that traffic had backed up right behind it. Rusty gently applied his brakes to stop in time and give the drivers behind him time to stop as well. But this wasn't enough to prevent the reckless drivers of a VW and a Ford SUV from zooming over the hill. The VW driver was unable to stop in time and swerved off the road and into the woods, colliding with the tree. Reacting quickly, Rusty moved his car toward the center line to give them more space, narrowly avoiding contact with the VW. Despite the collision, the driver of the VW managed to continue driving, albeit with a visibly damaged passenger side wheel and suspension, burning rubber as they made their way to the next street to pull off. Prashanth was driving his Tesla Model 3 southbound on a California highway when traffic began slowing down. A Hyundai driver merged behind Prashanth since his lane was moving faster. Suddenly, traffic came to a complete stop, which caught a Ford driver off guard. He dove into the express lane to avoid rear-ending the now stopped Hyundai. Unfortunately, the Ford driver didn't notice a Honda approaching at high speed in the express lane. The Honda crashed into the front end of the Ford before getting pushed up onto the median barrier, where it got some airtime. Thankfully, both drivers were okay. Prashanth called the California Highway Patrol and provided them with this video, but they said they didn't need it. Our guess is that it's pretty clear who was at fault, since the Ford driver crossed double solid lines to get into the express lane. Prashanth wants to give a shout out to his fiancée Sri,
You still
who
can't tell
watches
whose
all
fault it
the
is by
Late Night
that.
channels, as well as his
Kinda.
colleagues at work who asked him to share his video with us. Jen was
You
driving
can't tell
home from
that
work when a black
he's crossed
Suburban
double.
moved to the right and made a U-turn right in front of her. Jen slammed on the brakes and barely missed the Suburban. The driver
That'd
of
be
the
on a
Suburban
Suburban,
was
though.
smiling
He's
and
changing
looking
lanes.
back as they pulled away. Jen's quick reflexes prevented a collision. Nice save. Jacob was driving to
Personal
school during the
attention, no
morning
bro.
rush hour on I-15 in stop-and-go traffic. Suddenly, he heard and felt the car behind him rear-end his Tesla. Jacob stopped for a second, then pulled over, but the other driver took off. Thankfully, the license plate was captured on video, which he provided to the CHP and to his insurance provider. The registered owner of the vehicle lives in San Diego, and the police investigation is still ongoing. B was driving his Model 3 down a California highway when traffic in the exit lane suddenly came to a complete stop. A pickup truck wasn't able to stop in time and rear-ended a minivan. Interestingly, the pickup truck managed to pull off some sort of drift such that the rear end hit the minivan rather than the front end, reducing the impact significantly. B pulled over to give the minivan driver their footage of the crash for
The minivan
insurance
is still
purposes and
damaged,
learned
like,
that everyone involved
cat
was
poop.
okay. Anuj was driving through a snowstorm along I-80 after a day of skiing when a white Tesla Model 3 spun out of control and hit the divider in the snow. Anuj stopped to check on the driver, who was okay but shaken up. Anuj sent along a shout-out for his 10-year-old son Jay, a big Wham Bam fan. Here comes another video of one Tesla recording another crashing, which is unusual, since most of our Tesla wreck submissions are recordings from the Tesla involved in the collision. This time, our submitter wants to know who you think was at fault. A Mercedes driver signaled to make a left turn while a Model 3 was speeding up the parking lane. Obviously, the Mercedes driver didn't check their side view mirror before turning. They hit the Model 3, which then sped through the intersection and straight
If it's a
into
parking lane, that's the
This
Tesla's
occurred
fault.
at around 7 p.m., and in this area, parking lanes can be used by rush hour traffic between 4 and 6 p.m. Who do you
That was
think
around
was at
7.
fault? The Mercedes
That's the-
driver or the Tesla driver? Leave your opinion in the comments.
Tesla driver.
Tanner was driving his Model 3 in Burbank,
got a
California.
total
when he
Tesla
suddenly
just
encountered
because he
a
doesn't know how to
green Kia
drive.
Soul in the middle of an intersection. Tanner thought the Kia driver was turning around, but then he realized she was blocking the road. Then she made a U-turn before swerving around the two lanes like a dumb driver, as Tanner puts it.
Whatever. She's trying to block
Cut off
everybody.
a Toyota 4Runner and floored the gas all the way to the next intersection.
I do the same thing back to her, bro.
She then did more donuts, and then it looks like she took off, only to come back for more. While spinning in circles, she nearly hit a Toyota Prius C. She then blocked the road, refusing to let anyone pass. Tanner waited for an opening, then floored the accelerator to get past her. In his rearview mirror, he watched her continue to block the road and wave her hand while people honked at her. ABC7 reported that she was arrested by the California Highway Patrol after leading them on a pursuit. Actually, Tanner had only seen the beginning of the incident as the Kia driver was doing donuts in front of the Writers Guild of America strike filmmakers protesting outside of Warner Brothers Studios. ABC7 reported that police tried to pull the woman over, but she fled before making her way onto I-110, eventually leading police south to Los Angeles. Officers then successfully deployed a spike strip. With her tires deflating, she was eventually pulled over near Century Boulevard. Officers approached the vehicle, shutting down the highway and stranding commuters while the CHP officers began a standoff with the woman. Eventually, they were able to pull her out of the vehicle. What a crazy story. Jamie was on her way to work one morning in Clovis, California, when a Dodge Durango crossed into her lane. The Dodge barely missed the SUV in front of Jamie. Instead, it sideswiped her brand new Tesla Model 3 before slamming into the Volkswagen behind her, making this a 3-car accident. Incredibly, nobody involved was harmed. Police were called to the scene where they facilitated the exchange of information between the involved drivers. Allegedly, the driver of the Durango had fallen asleep behind the wheel after a long night shift. The collision tore a wheel off the Tesla's rear axle, revealing extensive damage to the entire undercarriage, and we're guessing that's the rear motor. If you know what we're looking at, leave a comment. Insurance claims were filed at the scene of the accident, and within a few hours, Jamie's insurance provider contacted her to let her know her Tesla had been deemed a total loss. Jamie bought a used 2020 Model S Performance to replace her Model 3 so she could get behind the wheel of another Tesla right away, rather than wait months for delivery of a new one. Jonathan was sitting at a red light in Redondo Beach, California. Just as the light turned green, a black Ford Focus coming from the left ran the red light and hit 2 cars.
What?
Both cars rolled toward Jonathan's.
Be back, y'all.
witness a 4-car accident. It looks like the driver of the Tesla in front of Jonathan managed to escape being hit by reversing just
That wasn't on him.
Jonathan
I think he
provided
would have
this
been missed
footage to
anyways.
responding police officers, and they immediately found the driver of the black Ford at fault. Everyone involved was okay, but Jonathan noticed the driver of the black Ford put his hands over his face after the crash, as if he knew he'd done something wrong. Mark was on his way to work and canceled autopilot when he noticed a police car to his right. The police usually run radar from a highway overpass, so Mark drove past it normally before setting autopilot's speed to 85 miles per hour. What he failed to notice was that the police were right behind him. He'd been blissfully unaware of the police officer until he was right next to him.
Imagine if manufacturing automation was simple. Introducing Vention. One platform to design, automate, order, and deploy manufacturing equipment in days.
When the officer turned on his light, Mark quickly pulled over and slowed down to set his car to the right speed. He told us the rest of his drive to work was a lot more lawful. Eric was driving through a parking area in Yosemite National Park where the posted speed limit was 20 miles per hour. An impatient Lexus driver decided to pass him across double solid lines. Unfortunately for him, he hit the park ranger right on the spot and got pulled over immediately. Gotta love a little dose of instant justice. Andrew was driving on a road where the right lane becomes a bus lane and other drivers must merge into the left lane. A Kia driver wanted to get in front of a Land Rover, but the Land Rover driver wasn't having it. They had a slow drag race before a BMW driver went to make a left turn but had to stop right in front of the Kia for pedestrians. The Kia driver didn't want to stop and swerved left to avoid T-boning the BMW, kissing the Land Rover instead. Both cars pulled over, but Andrew was in a hurry to beat pedestrians. The Kia driver didn't want to stop and swerved left to avoid T-boning the BMW.
The Kia was on the bus
kissing
lane
Land
anyways.
Rover instead. Both cars pulled over, but Andrew was in a hurry to get his kid to school, so he didn't have time to offer them his Tesla cam footage. This emitter was driving home from work with the windows down when he heard a loud crunching sound. When he looked back, he noticed an SUV had been T-boned by a truck at an intersection where the city is still working on installing traffic lights. Will was driving in the left lane when he noticed a car coming at him from behind, going at least 100 miles per hour, so he moved over to let them pass. As they passed him, Will says it looked like they drifted into the shoulder before correcting and swerving in front of Will's Tesla, kicking a bunch of debris up onto his windshield and cracking it.
That's
Will isn't
crazy.
sure if they did this intentionally or if the driver was
doesn't look
drunk,
like it.
but they managed to keep their car in the lane following this incident. Actually, we've seen a meme making the rounds on TikTok and Facebook touting this pro-driver tip. You can cut off any Tesla and it will automatically hit the brakes and let you in. The comments on those threads are terrifying. Some people say they intentionally do this all the time, and others say they'll be trying it out. Please be careful out there. We discussed this on the Wham Bam Fam Discord server, and one of our members, Steven, pointed out that the sign in the picture and the sign in Will's video both say Dixon Landing. Steven even found both locations, and sign in Will's video both say Dixon Landing. Steven even found both locations, and they're both taken from I-880, traveling in the same direction. What do you guys think? Could this be the same car from the meme? James had parked his Model Y in Irvine, California when someone temporarily vandalized his car by drawing something nasty on the hood. Another guy then walked by his car, saw the message on the hood, and we have no idea what it was, but evidently he felt like he needed to wipe it off. James thinks maybe the kids left a note to not subscribe to Wham Bam, which of course means you should. In the end, the masterpiece didn't leave any permanent marks on his carbon hood. Sam was driving his Model Y in Los Angeles, California. He was approaching an intersection when the driver of a large truck pulling 2 dump trailers tried to stop for the light that was turning red. The 2 trailers continued to move forward, hitting a black pickup truck immediately to the right. Thankfully, the pickup managed to escape from being crushed, so nobody was hurt in the incident, other than the truck driver's ego, that is. While he was driving down I-5 in California, he fell asleep behind the wheel and crashed into a semi-truck hauling a trailer stacked with wood.
Hey, Ryan Reynolds here. Big Wireless has once again raised their prices. In response,
Emilio told us he called Turo's support on the phone after sending us these images, and they told him the Tesla is a total loss. How do we fix this? I guess all we can do is tell our viewers to stop renting Emilio's Tesla. Adam and his son were driving down a residential street in Napa, California, when the driver of a pickup truck ran a stop sign and T-boned the driver's door of their Tesla Model 3. The impact was so powerful, it pushed the Tesla into 2 utility poles on the right side, one of which couldn't withstand the impact. The left repeater camera stopped working at the moment of impact and doesn't show much, but we also have the footage from the left pillar camera, and it shows everything. This is the first time we've ever shown video from a pillar camera on our channel, and that's because it isn't a normal part of the TeslaCam feature. Along with the wide forward camera, the pillar cameras are normally only used for autopilot and safety features. But in the event of an accident, and if you've enabled the right settings, your Tesla will save the footage from those cameras too. In the state of California, and nowhere else as far as we know, Tesla will provide you with these recordings if you request them, which Adam did. Since all the doors were damaged, Adam and his son could only get out by climbing through one of the windows. While doing so, the driver who'd run the stop sign claimed that Adam took him out. Adam said the guy didn't ask if they were okay or even try to help them at all. Bystanders even told the guy to calm down because he wouldn't stop yelling. Police and firefighters responded, and Adam and his son were checked for injuries. Incredibly, they were perfectly fine. The other driver kept insisting that he'd stopped, but the police took Adam's side after seeing the video. Adam's wife works for the city. When he called her, she was too stressed to drive to the accident scene herself, so the city manager gave her a ride. Little did she know, the city manager was the former chief of police. When he arrived, the cops and firefighters started joking around, "Uh-oh, the boss is here." This brought a little levity to the whole situation, and as Adam puts it, he got a little instant cred with the first responders. Adam wants to thank Tesla Insurance for sorting everything out in a timely manner. The Tesla was deemed a total loss, and 2 weeks later, Adam has already taken delivery of a new Model 3. Dan was on his way to work when, out of nowhere, an SUV driver decided he didn't want to wait in traffic anymore. He proceeded to make a U-turn right into another car that was coming down the middle lane. After making sure both drivers were okay, Dan shared his TeslaCam footage with both of them. Then he thought to himself, yes! After 3 years, I can finally submit something to Wham Bam! Dan told us he watches our new video every Sunday while on the elliptical.
Both illegal.
Does that mean you're at the gym now, Dan? Push harder, man. Let's go. Come on, you can do this. Ivan dropped off his daughter at school and was returning home. When he was almost home, a little boy ran out from behind cars into the middle of the road before running back. Ivan hit the brakes and the Tesla stopped instantly. The speed limit on this road is 15 miles per hour. Thankfully, Ivan had been obeying the speed limit, but he told us that many drivers speed down this road. Ivan doesn't want to think about what might have happened if someone else had been driving down this road at the time. Ashish was driving north at around 50 miles per hour on a wet interstate in San Jose, California, when his Model Y hydroplaned and crashed into the median barrier. The car was towed away and declared a total loss by Tesla Insurance. Police responded to the scene to control traffic. Ashish told us he's an avid viewer of our channel, but never thought he'd be making a submission. He wanted a shout out for his wife, Anusha. Brian was driving home from school one night when a rogue tire came rolling across 2 lanes of traffic and directly onto the front of his Model 3. Brian said he'd only just noticed some small debris in the middle of the road right before the tire came into view, so he had no time to take evasive action. Brian told us he's a fairly new subscriber and he got a Tesla after seeing how safe they are thanks to our videos. Did you hear that, Tesla? We're helping you sell cars. Please invite us to the Cybertruck delivery event. We promise we won't crash anything. I mean, we might crash the party if we don't get invited. Adrian lost control of his Model 3 when he took a turn too fast in Rialto, California. The car hit the curb of a highway entrance, causing a wheel to become loose. Despite this, he drove the car back home and filed an insurance claim. The repair cost came to over $11,000 and repairs will take 2 months to complete. Adrian told us he's 19 and this is his first car. He's been watching our videos for over a year and was looking forward to sending us his own submission, but he didn't think it would be something like this. This Model 3 owner got a notification on his phone that his alarm was going off. Watch what he found when he watched the Sentry Mode footage. A white Mercedes pulled up and a guy jumped out, broke the back window, and lowered the back seat to look in the trunk. Luckily, our submitter didn't have anything in the trunk, so the criminal took off, leaving him with a repair bill to fix the broken window. Our submitter contacted the police, but they said there wasn't anything they could do. Watch what happened while Harrison was driving his Tesla. He was going through an intersection when a Ford Flex driver ran a red light. Harrison had no chance to stop before T-boning the Ford on the driver's side. Thankfully, everyone involved was okay. From the moment they were out of their vehicles, the Ford driver denied he had run a red light. But Harrison told him, "Hey man, I got it all on video." They watched this footage together inside Harrison's Tesla before the Ford driver finally agreed that he had run a red light. Responding police officers were impressed by the footage, but they were not impressed with the Ford driver's lack of a driver's license. Harrison's Tesla was deemed a total loss. He'd purchased it for $68,000 in 2021 with the FSD option, and the same configuration now costs around $71,000. Even though the other driver is totally at fault, Harrison is still working with the insurance adjusters to settle on a replacement value for his vehicle. Harrison says the insurance company is using Kelley Blue Book to determine the value of the vehicle, but that evaluation doesn't accurately factor in the value of the FSD option, even though it's a $15,000 add-on. John and Jill were heading home from Disneyland in Anaheim, California, when they witnessed a Mercedes CLA rear-end another car at high speed. The driver of the Mercedes then took off, making it a hit and run. John and Jill decided to use their Model X's 670 horsepower to chase him down. The Mercedes eventually broke down, and John and Jill directed the California Highway Patrol to their location. They told us the driver turned out to be drunk. John and Jill wanted to send a shout out to Sarah and Frank for their beautiful Disneyland wedding. Gio was driving along when the Fiat next to him hydroplaned, sliding from the carpool lane to the other side of the highway unscathed. Gio kept driving as there was no place to safely stop and everything seemed okay. Jake was driving in Burbank. When he stopped at a red light, he heard the sound of multiple Mercedes revving their engines while the driver next to him put his car into launch mode. Jake was tempted to put them in their place, but then his girlfriend noticed a cop across the street. Jake was about to put down his window and warn the guy, but the light turned green before he had the chance. As expected, the cop flipped a U-turn in front of him and served the AMG driver some instant justice. Justin's night of Tesla cam taping didn't end there. While he was heading back home from dinner that same night, a pedestrian decided to walk into traffic and block his lane. Justin doesn't know why they stepped into heavy traffic, but he told us they were glued to their phone the entire time. He honked and flashed his high beams in an attempt to get their attention, but they just stood there, staring and talking to their phone. He flashed his high beams again, but after drivers behind him started honking, he decided to try and squeeze by him.
At Extreme Experience, we believe the world's most exciting cars should be accessible to you. That's why we deliver world-class driving experiences at more than 40 epic driving destinations nationwide, so that you can explore America's best back roads from the driver's seat of an exotic car, or experience the adrenaline rush of racing a supercar on a track with no...
Anthony was driving home after work during a heavy storm when he suddenly found himself in deep water. He had no idea the road ahead was flooded. We can see the water pretty well in the clip, but he told us that in person it was difficult to see. The water got as deep as 10 feet, so he really avoided a dangerous situation. He used a different road to get home, and that one flooded just 45 minutes later. Mohammed told us he was driving about 80 miles per hour when he tried to merge into the middle lane to pass a car in front of him. His Tesla began to hydroplane when he drove through some standing water. His Tesla fishtailed and spun 180 degrees before he effectively backed into a semi-truck in the right lane while still going about 80 miles per hour. Neither Mohammed nor the semi-truck driver were harmed in the collision. We're guessing the trucker barely felt the impact, but he still pulled over and stopped. The California Highway Patrol responded to the scene and wrote a report, which Muhammad was able to include in his insurance claim. His Model 3 was deemed a total loss by his insurance provider after the repair quote came to $33,000, so they wrote him a check for the value of a new car. Nick was stopped next to a Camaro at a red light in El Dorado Hills, California. When the light turned green, they both took off in what Nick calls a friendly, spirited race. At least it was for Nick. The Camaro driver lost the race and became furious, and to Nick's surprise, he turned into a stalking road rager. Nick thinks he couldn't handle being beaten by an EV. The Camaro driver used the turn lane in an attempt to pass Nick, and when he finally did, he brake-checked Nick before driving painfully slowly. At the next intersection, the road opened up into multiple lanes, so Nick moved into the middle lane, then abruptly to the turn lane to escape the Camaro. It seemed like his strategy had worked. Then a few seconds later, the Camaro came back and stopped right next to Nick's Tesla. Nick turned around and the Camaro driver sped off, crossing the double yellow line and illegally passing several cars. The individual proceeded to follow Nick, then parked one block over at a shop owned by one of Nick's friends. Nick adds that racing is never safe, but that other driver turned a calculated open lane 0 to 60 race into a very dangerous incident. Don't be like this guy. This emitter was driving his Model Y on his way to pick up groceries when a red car pulled out from a gas station and sideswiped a Subaru Impreza. The red car proceeded to hit a pickup truck, which almost crashed into our emitter. When he was heading back from the store, he saw firefighters had arrived at the scene. Dinah was driving home from her gym in Anaheim Hills, California, when another driver ran a red light and crashed into the car in front of her. Dinah immediately shared her footage with the responding officer and collected the email addresses of both involved drivers. Later that night, she sent the footage to them both for their insurance claims. Both drivers were thankful for the video and informed her that nobody had been seriously injured. This emitter was driving his Model 3 in San Gabriel, California. While he was stopped at a red light, a Chevy Malibu started creeping up on him and getting uncomfortably close. This emitter inched forward, but the Chevy driver pulled up even closer. When the light turned green, the Chevy driver started driving recklessly in an attempt to get ahead of the emitter. Once he had the opportunity, he cut the emitter off and brake-checked him. The emitter wasn't having it, so he hit the juice pedal and zoomed around the Chevy driver, who struggled to keep up. Eventually, the Chevy driver backed off. Richard was driving his Model 3 in the passing lane on State Route 91 in California when another Tesla suddenly swerved through the lane barrier. A Subaru driver had no chance to stop and rear-ended the Tesla. It looks like the Tesla driver may have been braking, but truthfully, we have no idea what's going on here. Leave a comment with your theory. Goldman received 2 warnings on his phone, the first telling him that Sentry Mode has triggered the alarm state, followed by another telling him the car alarm has been triggered. A thief smashed the back window and folded down the back seat, but Goldman hadn't left anything there, so the thief calmly walked away. Goldman filed an insurance claim and a report with the Oakland Police Department. Repairing the window cost him $1,000. Goldman sent along this message: "Please be careful when you park in San Francisco and the East Bay Area." David was on his way to San Francisco on US Route 101. He knew he'd need to take the I-280 exit soon, so he merged into the exit lane. Suddenly, he noticed a car in his left side view mirror coming up extremely quickly. He assumed the driver wanted to weave through traffic, but the gap between him and the Infiniti SUV on his left was about to close. David heard them brake hard while swerving to the right to avoid a collision. He was convinced there was no way they could slow down fast enough, clearly committed to cutting between him and the other vehicle. David felt like contacting the police would be useless because the license plate could be fake. He'd rather just show the world how not to weave through traffic and how to be a defensive driver. Gregorin was driving home from getting some late-night Vietnamese coffee, and while merging onto the highway, he encountered a ghost truck. Gregorin was using autopilot, and it brought the car to a safe stop rather than hitting the truck. He then took control and drove around it. Gregorin got out and looked in the truck but didn't see anybody. I don't know about you, but I'm getting goosebumps. Gregorin called 911 before leaving the Ghostbusters scene. I mean, the accident. Klaus was driving on a highway in Los Angeles when a vehicle cut off a couple of bikers, nearly hitting one of them. The second biker got really angry and broke off the car's side view mirror. It was Steve's second time driving his brand new Tesla Model Y when he saw a bouncing tire jump the highway divider and crash into the car beside him. Luckily, the tire only hit the front bumper. Even so, Steve stopped and made sure everybody was okay. Romeo Zahn was driving his Model 3 on a Los Angeles highway when the car in front of him suddenly caught on fire. If we watch that in slow motion, the fire looks like it comes out of nowhere with no sparks or visible gas leaks. Leave a comment if you think you know what could have caused this.
Feel the heat, well, there is here. Look at that, the car's on fire.
Hey, nice Model X plaid, but that's not what this story is about. Gian was headed home in heavy rain after picking up his son from school. As they approached an intersection, Gian had no idea they were about to experience a close call he'll never forget. After crossing the intersection, an Audi merged into their lane just ahead of them. They continued driving behind the Audi, unaware of a surprise waiting up ahead. Suddenly, a large tree fell on the right side of the road, landing right on the Audi's roof, right where Gian would have been driving if he'd still been behind the Model X and the Audi hadn't merged between them. Gian told us he's grateful the Audi was there, even though it probably wasn't a fun experience for the Audi driver. Justin sent us our first 2-in-1 submission, meaning that we have 2 stories in one clip. Okay, here's the first one. Justin was pulling into his neighborhood while using the full self-driving beta when he encountered a BMW sitting in the middle of the road and not moving. FSD Beta tried to maneuver around the stopped BMW, but Justin took over before it could. He manually followed the white car, thinking it was about to pull to the side of the road. Suddenly, it pulled an unexpected U-turn right in front of him, forcing him to hit the brakes. Justin continued driving to his house just a few hundred feet away, where his dad was taking a walk with Justin's dog, Taco. Taco ran into the street when he saw Justin's car approaching. Justin's dad ran in front of Taco to try to stop him from going into traffic, and that's when Justin's dad slipped. Justin's girlfriend Victoria, who was in the car at the time, couldn't help but crack up when she realized his dad had slipped in slippers. Nailed it! Okay, not only was this a 2-in-1 submission, it was also captured from another angle by a Ring camera.
Did you fell? Or you just slipped and fell?
Mind blown. We're glad to report that his dad was fine after the fall. Justin says he'll forever be known as the man who slipped in slippers caught on Tesla Cam and Ring camera. Richard was sitting at a traffic light in Southgate, California when, all of a sudden, another Tesla Model Y crashed into the center divider. The Tesla ripped down a sign, which smacked into the Nissan Rogue in front of Richard. Okay, I'm gonna say it. I think that Nissan went rogue. Get it? Get it? Yeah, you get it. While Drogon was stopped at a traffic light waiting to make a left turn, a distracted driver skated the median. Fortunately, he recovered in time. How many style points is that trick worth? We have one more phone video to show you. It's from Victoria, who was sitting in her parked Model Y with her daughter when they felt 2 impacts a few seconds apart. She looked at the Tesla Cam recording right away and saw that a Toyota 4Runner had rear-ended her twice. When Victoria confronted the other driver, he immediately became aggressive. She called the police, and an officer soon arrived at the scene. At first, the other driver tried to convince the officer that Victoria had caused the accident. When the officer viewed the Tesla Cam video, he had no more questions about who was at fault. John was eating at a restaurant when he got a phone notification informing him that Sentry Mode had been activated. John ran out and found his windows had been smashed and his backpack had been stolen. He also found this video. Thankfully, nothing of value had been in the car, but based on our experience with similar stories from other submitters, replacing the windows will cost at least $1,000 US. Unlike most other stories, though, the burglars in this one actually got caught. The same thing happened to 3 other cars in the same parking lot. Since John had the criminal's license plate number on video, the police were able to identify them. Thankfully, the thief wasn't using a stolen car or stolen plates. Brandon was with some friends at his house when they heard a loud bang outside. When they went to see what had happened, they found 2 wrecked cars. The driver of the small crossover had crossed double yellow lines when traffic wasn't clear and had hit a young driver, causing his van to go up on 2 wheels. Thankfully, everyone was okay, but the driver who'd crossed the double yellow lines claimed they'd been going straight, which the video proves isn't true. Brandon gave a copy of the video to all parties involved as well as to the police. Mitch was driving on Highway 85 in San Jose when he had to avoid a car stopped in the middle of the highway. If you're wondering why the driver had stopped, a mother duck and her ducklings were waddling across the highway. Obviously, stopping on the highway is dangerous, but on the other hand, nobody wants to run over a family of ducks. Let us know in a comment what you think people should do in this situation.
If you've been waiting to apply for disability benefits, don't. Hi, I'm Sarah, and I'm a lawyer.
Dane was driving in Los Angeles when a Scion driver squeezed between him and another Model 3. Now that was a close one. I wonder if the Scion driver even knew how many cameras were watching. Dane sent us another clip from the same day. Did you see that? Let's watch it one more time. Someone was walking between lanes down the middle of the highway in the middle of the night. We hope he got out of the road safely. Mike was driving his Model 3 in Hesperia, California. A BMW had been tailgating him for several blocks when he suddenly heard it revving up behind him. It flew past him and blew through a stop sign in a residential neighborhood, nearly sideswiping his Tesla. Mike decided this maneuver was so reckless that he had to send this video to the police, but he doesn't know if they plan to do anything. Jeff was late for work and decided to take his usual shortcut. While he was waiting to turn left, a Fiat across from him stopped. Jeff assumed this was done for no reason. Boy, was he wrong. He hit the brakes, and it's a good thing he did. Blinded by the sun, he hadn't noticed a father and son walking against a "Don't Walk" sign. That was a close one. Andrew was driving his Model Y in San Francisco when a modified BMW had been driving recklessly around him for a while. After waiting at a red light, something happened involving the BMW and an Amazon delivery truck. It looked like it was the truck driver's fault, but the BMW driver just took off. Andrew thinks they might have had something they didn't want the cops to see. Lots of thefts and burglaries in San Francisco are committed by criminals driving nice cars, and Andrew just thinks it was strange. Andrew circled around and offered the Amazon driver his Tesla cam footage, but the Amazon truck had its own dash cam system rolling. David was driving his Model 3 Performance in Antelope, California, when he found himself next to a new electric BMW. Both drivers looked at each other before giving each other the race nod. David told us he was impressed with the BMW keeping up with him at first, and he was surprised by its acceleration. Vince is 13 years old, and his mom owns a 2019 Tesla Model X. He sent us this video from when his mom had parked to make a quick purchase from Target. When she returned, she noticed a scratch across both driver's side doors. After noticing it, she called Vince and told him what had happened. Thankfully, he's a huge Tesla fanboy and had already set up Sentry Mode for her. They were able to find the man who caused the damage, and it turned out to be a guy pushing a shopping cart containing some kind of armor or motorcycle gear. Is that a Fox logo? After finding out who was responsible and what exactly had happened, Vince told us they chose not to contact the police or make an insurance claim.
Why?
Instead, they purchased a repair kit to fix the scratch themselves. We definitely think they should notify the police, as doing so may help solve other vandalism cases, and maybe even stop this from happening to someone else. This submitter's wife was in their Tesla parked in a grocery store parking lot when a lady with a young kid in her front passenger seat drove an SUV into a set of parked cars behind the Tesla. The people inside the grocery store indicated that the driver had just been inside the store with the kid. They said she appeared to be very intoxicated and the kid had been doing all of the shopping. The CHP came and took a report, and the couple provided the footage from their Tesla as evidence. We can see his wife quickly get out of the car when the accident happened to try and get a picture of the SUV, but she was unsuccessful. Emilio's mother was on her way to work in their family's Model X when, all of a sudden, a man rear-ended her, then fled the scene after she'd pulled over to the shoulder. She immediately called Emilio and his dad to tell them what had happened, and they told her to call 911 and that they were on their way. When they arrived, Emilio immediately checked the camera footage and realized that the other car had been so badly damaged it couldn't get too far even if the driver wanted to, because the radiator had been completely destroyed. His car had to be overheating, meaning he had to be making frequent stops. Emilio and his dad headed toward LA, searching for the car. About 3 hours after the accident, Emilio's dad found the car and called 911 before deciding to approach it. He approached the driver and offered him assistance in getting to wherever he needed to go since his car seemed to be in bad shape. He continued to play the part of the Good Samaritan until the police arrived. Emilio was on his way while on the phone with the 911 operator, explaining to them that his father was with the suspect. The operator told him not to follow the suspect because he could be dangerous and it would be their own fault if they were harmed. Emilio told the operator that was a risk they were willing to take. Finally, the police arrived and arrested the suspect. He had over a pound of marijuana in his car, no driver's license, and no insurance. Emilio had to file a claim with their own insurance provider. Fixing the car took over 6 months, and the car still needs some adjustments. Now, he rents the Tesla out on Turo. Emilio asked us to plug his Turo account and help his car rental business. This is the first time you can actually rent a piece of Wham Bam memorabilia. Go check it out and live the Wham Bam experience. Justin was heading to his girlfriend's house to have dinner with her family. He was stopped in a line of traffic that went in front of the exit of a Walmart parking lot. Justin says he tried to leave space so other drivers leaving the lot could squeeze through. A couple of cars made it through the gap, but unfortunately, a second red car didn't emerge unscathed. As the driver tried to squeeze through the gap on his left, they were struck by a pickup truck after the light turned green. Justin honked his horn in an attempt to warn the pickup driver, but it was too late. Justin threw on his hazard lights and offered the driver of the red car a copy of his footage. Alex was driving southbound on US Route 101 in California when the free-flowing traffic came to a sudden stop. Luckily, Autopilot was able to react in time to avoid a frontal collision. Unfortunately, the pickup truck behind him rammed into his Tesla. This caused another sedan to crash into the pickup, making this a 3-car accident. Alex filed an insurance claim with the pickup driver's insurance provider and is currently waiting to hear back. Alex was the only driver involved who has a dash cam, and the other drivers were impressed with how it was able to record the accident from so many angles. Alex says this was everyone's first time being in an accident, so they were all quite shaken up. Despite everything, Alex finds it comforting to know he has solid evidence of what happened. He didn't have to stress about someone lying or leaving the scene of the accident, and instead focused on safely getting off the highway. Get yourself a dash cam or a Tesla. Randy was driving in Oceanside, California when he spotted this chopped up Model S that's been turned into a pickup truck. He says the skull on the hood gives it that pimp my ride vibe. Mala was 6 months pregnant and heading home at 4:30 a.m. after dropping her husband off at the airport. She was waiting at a traffic light less than a mile from her house when her Tesla Model 3 was suddenly rear-ended.
From our first engagement with Vention, within 6 months, we had the first of our 2 robots.
Both Mala and her baby were fine. Police and paramedics responded quickly to the scene. Mala was able to show her Tesla cam footage to the responding police officer, demonstrating how the Honda had drifted into her lane, hit the back end of her Tesla at full speed, then flipped over before landing right side up. Mala remembered passing the same Honda when she'd taken the highway exit a couple of minutes prior to the collision, when the Honda had stopped right in the middle of the exit. When the Honda sped up and began following her, Mala noticed it swerving in and out of lanes, and she assumed the driver was under the influence. At the time of the collision, the driver behind her was also in a Tesla, and that driver told the police that he'd been following her and also thought she was under the influence. Mala said that when the other driver got out of her vehicle and tried to approach her, Mala definitely thought she was under the influence of something. Her excuse was that she had fallen asleep behind the wheel. Sadly, the police officer took her word for it and not only didn't take Mala's statement, he didn't seem to conduct any investigation at all. The Honda driver walked herself to an ambulance and left the scene. Mala tried to find out why her statement, as well as those of other key witnesses, weren't taken, and why no real investigation was conducted. The only answer she got was from another officer, who told her that since there were no fatalities, their policy is to only conduct a DUI investigation if they smell alcohol. Mala's Tesla Model 3 was totaled, and she hadn't even owned it for a full year. I think it's safe to say she'll be buying a new one after this one saved her life and the life of her unborn baby. Snowspeeder was cruising through Seal Beach on I-405, doing his best to be a safe and courteous driver. Evidently, the driver of a Ram truck didn't appreciate it when Snowspeeder changed lanes in front of him, and he immediately retaliated. Snowspeeder told us he's a longtime fan of Wham Bam Tesla Cam and that he and his kids love watching our full-length episodes, but he's not a fan of our short videos. I don't get it. What's not to like about our fun vertical videos? While submitter Tesla Creek was driving northbound on a normally busy street, the right lane was blocked by a truck that had broken down, and a front-end loader was trying to pull it out of the way. The driver in front of him needed to turn left, but there was no left turn lane. It seems like both drivers behind the Tesla were distracted by the broken down truck, and they didn't notice the car turning and the Tesla stopping. The driver of the white truck slammed on his brakes before the truck behind him rear-ended him while trying to swerve around him. Debris flew everywhere, including some bits of plastic that landed on the Tesla's trunk lid. Thankfully, there was no damage, and he decided not to pull over since it looked like a police officer was already at the scene. This submitter was on his way to work. As he passed Holloman Air Force Base, he witnessed F-16 pilots returning from a training mission. Our submitter's timing was perfect for capturing the planes on their final approach. Micah was driving with autopilot engaged and the speed set to 75 miles per hour. There was a car gradually passing him on his left while a large work truck was on his right. That's when, surprise, surprise, a Honda pulled up and tailgated the car on his left before darting between it and Micah's Tesla. Micah told us autopilot sounded an alarm but didn't otherwise react. So he took over and swerved to the right to avoid a collision, almost bumping into the truck next to him. Micah reported the reckless driver to the police, but he never saw them show up or had his call returned. Steve was on his way home from some pre-holiday grocery shopping in his Model Y and was only 2 blocks from home. When he stopped for a stop sign, the minivan behind him didn't. Steve included this photo and asked us to play Guess the Repair Bill. Fixing his Tesla will require a new rear hatch, upper and lower bumper, wiring harness, sensors, paint, and framework. This submitter was driving his Model Y in Los Angeles, California. He was behind a Lexus at a red light, and when they turned, he overtook the Lexus driver, who had to slow down for an SUV. This didn't sit well with the Lexus driver, and they sped up and began following our submitter. When they approached the next red light, the Lexus driver pulled up next to him. The Lexus driver rolled down his window before screaming and spitting on the side of the Tesla. It kinda looks like most of that spit ended up inside the Lexus. I guess there is some justice in the world. Patrick was exiting the highway on his way home when some dude in a go-kart looking thing suddenly ran the red light in the bike lane and drove through the intersection. It's-a me, Mario! Jeff was leaving a local ice cream shop one night when he discovered this unusual vehicle sitting in the parking lot. Jeff didn't notice the unique illuminated logo on the front bumper until he passed in front of it. He checked Google image search but couldn't find any sign of the logo. Does anyone recognize the vehicle or its logo? Jeff says it sure looks like an EV, but he can't be sure. Post your ideas below. Danny was using a free charging station at Bayfair Center while he and his wife were inside shopping. Suddenly, he got an alert that his Tesla had been unplugged, then another saying it had been plugged in and was charging. Danny told his wife he thought someone had tried to unplug his car. Sure enough, another EV owner had pulled up next to him and tried to unplug his car. Danny told us because he's a smart Wham Bam Tesla Cam viewer, he'd purchased an adapter lock so the other guy wasn't able to unplug him. You can find the link to that adapter in the video description. SJ Kidd was driving home from class on Highway 84. The driver of the box truck in front of him changed his mind about where he was going at the last second and sideswiped SJ Kidd's Model 3. SJ Kidd told us the driver was unlicensed and had no proof of insurance. SJ Kidd didn't contact the police because he didn't want to make the situation any more complicated than it needed to be. Instead, he spoke with the company manager and she emailed him a copy of her insurance coverage, so he thought everything would be fine. Now SJ Kidd says the company is denying responsibility and he had to make a claim with his own insurance provider. The total cost of repairs is over $21,000 US. Patrick was driving during a huge storm and the highways of California were pretty flooded. He watched two cars drive by and completely splash water over nearby cars. Patrick told us it was definitely cool to watch and he thinks autopilot is a great feature to have in these situations. Opal was driving home on I-110 in Los Angeles, California when, out of nowhere, some guy went running across the interstate. Opal was going the speed limit of 65 miles per hour, and he thinks if he'd been going any faster than that, he would have hit the guy. Axel was driving in San Diego when another driver decided to make a sudden lane change and almost hit a barrier and another car. Please don't do stuff like this. Taking the next exit might cost you a few minutes, but diving for an exit may cost you or someone else a life. Herman was heading to work in Santa Ana, California when he noticed a Mercedes behind him that was having difficulty maintaining a safe distance. He feared being rear-ended. When traffic came to a stop, the Mercedes didn't. Thankfully, Herman had been expecting this and had braced himself for impact. The other driver took full responsibility and Herman filed a claim through his insurance. It took 2 weeks to get his car back and the entire trunk had to be replaced. Herman told us the sound of the grill falling apart reminded him of the sound of breaking Lego bricks in the Lego video games. Mike was leaving a parking lot and traveling at around 10 miles per hour when a Mazda driver turning into a gas station collided with the side of his Tesla Model 3. During the impact, the glass on the driver's door shattered, sending shards of glass throughout the cabin and hitting both Mike and his girlfriend.
No!
Although they weren't seriously injured, both Mike and his girlfriend experienced hearing issues after the crash, and Mike's girlfriend suffered neck pains for several months. The driver of the Mazda was underage and underinsured. The police were called, and they arrived quickly at the scene of the accident. Since the Mazda driver's insurance only covered $10,000 US, Mike's insurance ended up covering the rest of the total car's value of $60,000 US. Mike found it ironic that a Mazda crashed into a Tesla with a vanity plate that reads, "What's gas?" while turning into a gas station.
Wham! Bam, we got a picture, man. Please support the show.
These night vision glasses are taking the world by storm. They are a game changer for driving in low light conditions.
I'll end stream for now. Maybe start it up later.